Tea Party. Tonight we're with Walter Cooke, and he's running for Woodlands Township, position 5. And it's Friday, September 20th. With me are Larry Rogers, Bob Bagley, Del Fessenden, Dave Smith, Dennis Tibbs, Pat Tibbs. So with that, as we discussed, if you want to kick it off with up to 5-minute opening, and then we'll go in with the questions after that.
Very good. Well, good evening, everyone. Pat, gentlemen, my name's Walter Cooke, and I'm running for position 5 on the Woodlands Township Board. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law for 45 years in private practice of law. I do primarily commercial real estate and bank lending work. I moved to the Woodlands in 1990 with my wife and 3 little boys, and we raised them here. They're all graduates of the Woodlands High School. My wife was an educator. She taught at the Christian Academy and at Collins and Mitchell Intermediate. I originally practiced law in downtown Houston and made that drive for about 7 years. And one day I left Houston and arrived at the Woodlands, and I could not remember what happened from leaving the garage in Houston and arriving in the Woodlands. I decided that was time for me to quit that commute. So I partnered up with Lloyd Carl, who I think was the second lawyer in the Woodlands, and we opened a small firm. And I guess that was in about 2000 or thereabouts. And in 2005, an old firm out of Beaumont, Oregon, Bell and Tucker, that was actually founded in 1907 by some lawyers that showed up for the Spindletop oil boom, asked us to join their firm. They had a small Woodlands presence but wanted more people on the ground, so we joined them. I've been with Oregon, Bell and Tucker since about 2005, give or take. With respect to the township, I served on the Woodlands Community Association for a 2-year term back at the time when the associations were being merged into, acquired by, taken over by the township. I've served on the numerous nonprofit boards here in Montgomery County. And I've always thought about running for the township, but for personal and reasons I just couldn't do it until this time around, so I decided to throw my hat in the ring. So why am I running? I'm really running primarily because I got concerned about all this talk of incorporation. And I just don't think we need to incorporate the Woodlands at this time. We may never need to incorporate, I don't know, but I know now is not the right time. In my judgment, we get no benefit from incorporation, and we're going to incur a lot of costs if we do incorporate. And really we can't afford to incorporate now with the maturing of the Woodlands and the leveling off of the increase in appraised property values. We're not seeing the big jumps in tax revenue we've experienced in the past without increasing the tax rate. And then we had this dip in sales tax revenue during 2019, which has caused us to go into a deficit budget situation. They got past that for 2020 by increasing the tax rate a little bit. But the predictions are in 2021, 2022, and subsequent years, you're going to see an ever-increasing deficit. And, that means either taxes have got to be increased and or services have got to be cut. So I think the last thing in the world we need right now is to incorporate and incur a bunch of costs. Some are known, some are unknown, because obviously the way you play incorporation out, you might try to do incorporation light, incorporate and then, cut a deal with the sheriff for additional deputies like we have now. But at a very minimum, we'd have to take over all the expense of our roads, and sooner or later all these concrete streets are going to have to get replaced, repaired, and that would all be on the ticket of the taxpayers in the Woodlands. At the very least, you'd have to have a city secretary, so there goes your personnel costs go up. I hear they're actually reserving for a city hall, which I remember when they bought the building they're in now, and it was like half empty because the whole idea was there'd be plenty of expansion room. And I was kind of surprised to see that they were actually talking about reserving for a city hall when you've got that big building that should be, at least, a quarter to a half empty. So that's the main reason I'm running. I want to do what I can to, let's shelve this incorporation, put it back on the shelf, turn our attention to the real problems that we have and get on down the road. If another thing happens, or we, get in a situation where our existing legislation doesn't meet the need, and we can't go back to the legislature and get another tweak like they do every year, then perhaps we can look at incorporation again, but not right now. The other, is that about 5 minutes? That's pretty cool. I ended on a complete sentence.
Most of them, but it's a good time. Well, thank you for that, and again, thanks for coming in. So you are not for incorporation right now. I think, you had mentioned in the general question, one of the main reasons why you're running. In essence, one of the things you said was Roger Gladys had asked you to run, and you had never turned down a request from him. And I believe he just passed away last August.
Yes.
Too, or this
He did.
last month.
A couple of months ago.
In his obituary, it said in 1979 that Roger was offered a job by a self-made man named George Mitchell. Mitchell was still involved in oil and gas business, but devised a plan to buy a large tract of land north of Houston, which is kind of Woodlands, and develop it into a city. So, and that's quote unquote right out of his obituary. So would that be going counter, by not incorporating, going counter to what Mitchell had envisioned?
Well, I think Mr. Mitchell envisioned the Woodlands ultimately being annexed by Houston. Because if you remember, Mr. Mitchell was a great regionalist. He believed in regional cooperation. And I think if you look, he envisioned eventually the Woodlands being annexed by Houston.
Well, that's why the manholes.
Yeah, I'll say city, or at least that's what I've been told. So, so that's my understanding, and I think obviously now, virtually nobody in the Woodlands wants to be annexed by Houston.
Right. Well, so you said that the cost would be almost prohibitive. How much?
No, I didn't say it'd be prohibitive. They're going to go up. We don't know how much they're going to go up.
Yeah.
But it's going to go up. And only two ways you're going to solve that problem. You're going to have to raise taxes, or you're going to have to cut services, or you're going to have to do both.
How do we know for sure that they're going to go up?
Well, number one, right now, the taxpayers in Montgomery County pay for the repair and replacement of our roads. If we become a city, the residents of the city of the Woodlands will be solely responsible for paying for the cost of our roads. So
is that an immediate switch over?
That's my understanding. It's immediate, when it becomes a city. That we know. Then it all depends on how incorporation plays out. For example, if we want our own police force, obviously we have to build the facilities for a police station, a jail. We have to hire a police chief. He's got to hire deputies. We got to have patrolmen. All the services now we get from the county sheriff. We pay, I think, $16 million a year. Maybe I'm wrong on that, for that service. But it will certainly be cheaper in the long run to continue to contract with the county to get those services. So that's one big unanswered question. How are we going to take care of our police force? And then, then what are we going to build? A new city hall? We got to have a city secretary. All these other costs are going to be incurred. We really don't know right now what the ultimate cost will be, because right now the question is incorporate or not incorporate. And the real issue ought to be, incorporate light, meaning you simply incorporate and continue to contract with the sheriff. Or do we, incorporate heavy, have our own police force, have a city hall, have a city secretary, and all the bells and whistles of a typical city? So I can't tell you how much costs are going to go up, but I can guarantee you they are going to go up. No question about it.
Okay, Larry.
About the incorporation on our question there, you stated several times that it's just not the time. The exact cost is hard to determine, because the city of the Woodlands could continue to rely on, you just quoted on that. How can you make a decision on whether to incorporate or not until you have all of the costs? So I'm just curious how people can make a decision at this time before all the costs. I think they've done all their research until the end of December. So without having all that cost, how can you so firmly say that the costs are going up?
Because there's no benefits from incorporation. We benefit zero. No benefit, but tons of cost. There's no fear of annexation anymore. You know, Senator Williams and others negotiated with the city of Houston, Conroe. We've got a moratorium on annexation until 2058. And then Texas law has now changed so that before Houston can annex us, first the moratorium's got to wear out, so that'd be 2058. Then Houston has got proposed a service plan to try to convince us in the Woodlands that we would be better served by being part of Houston instead of remaining whatever we may be in 2058. And then the residents of the Woodlands, the voters of the Woodlands, have to vote on being annexed. And if, you know, in 2058, the majority of the people in the Woodlands want to be annexed by the city of Houston, well, then so be it. But in terms of us today in 2019, there's absolutely no chance that we're going to be annexed by the city of Houston, at least until 2058. And if the voters in 2058 and beyond are as against annexation as the voters of today are, then we'll never vote to be annexed. And then, you know, the other offered reason was this extension of Woodlands Parkway. And, you know, the voters defeated the bonds in 2015 that were going to underwrite that. It's off the table. Talked to Commissioner Riley. He's got Mansions Way, you know, plotted in. Understand that the county's already bought all the right-of-way. He's got like half the commitments for half the cost to be built. So that's no longer a reason to incorporate. And I just have not seen, read, or heard any other reason to incorporate. I mean, the enabling legislation that creates the Woodlands gives them a wealth of authority to the township that they've never even bothered to use or attempt to use it. And until they have exhausted that authority, I just don't want any more government. The other thing too, and I know I've exceeded my limit, but let me a little bit more, is we the voters will be giving up a lot of control. Right now we elect our county sheriff, who's our chief of police. We elect the boards of all the MUDs. If there was an incorporation, the chief of police would be appointed by the city council. We wouldn't have any ability to elect them. So why give up all this authority that we voters have just to let a city council concentrate all that power? I just don't see any reason for that.
Bob?
So you brought up a couple of times 2058, the current agreement expires. I don't know how long you've been involved with incorporation or thought about incorporation within the state of Texas, but prior to a few years ago, any entity that wanted to join into incorporation, if you wanted to become part of the city of Conroe, for instance, you had to, the people had to go to the city to ask to be incorporated. The state legislature changed that law and put down there that any city could incorporate without approval of the voters up to 3 years prior to the actual day of incorporation. The voters have absolutely no.
Are you telling me that's the law today?
That was the law until just recently.
Yeah.
So laws change.
Yep.
And while you say that the Woodlands can no longer be annexed, that's not true, because it all depends upon who our legislators are. So
you're saying the law is going to change again? Have you heard anything about the legislature changing the existing law?
Did you hear about anything when they changed it this time?
Of course I did.
No, you didn't.
The paper, just like everybody else does.
It wasn't in the paper when they changed the law,
It wasn't in the paper. It wasn't
Can I
written up
finish?
in the.
Can I finish my comment?
Sure, go right ahead.
Thank you.
I thought I was here to answer questions.
You
not
are,
for you to
but-
comment.
You are, but you're not, I should have the opportunity
Yeah,
to finish
excuse
the
me,
question.
go ahead,
and-
go ahead. Finish your statement
Thank you.
and end it with a question mark.
So were you aware of the fact that the law changed and gave the cities the power to incorporate before, when it used to be up to the people whether they wanted to be incorporated?
It was my understanding before the legislature before last, whatever it was, changed the law to require a vote in the area to be annexed. That the law prior to that is that a city could reach out and annex an area without the approval of the voters in that area.
That is true, but they
Now, was it
changed,
changed from some prior law? I have no knowledge.
that's what I was asking, because
I have no knowledge.
that's
of that.
exactly what took place, and that's why
Yeah,
I was
that's what
trying
you
to finish.
say. I'm not, you know.
Well, you're a lawyer, go look it up.
I will look it up.
If you
I
know
will
all
look
of
it
the
up.
information about
I
incorporation.
don't know all the information.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm just simply saying there's no reason to incorporate now. The law can always change.
That's right.
If the law changed back to the way it was, then certainly if the people of the Woodlands felt that they were then, you know, it's now 2059, I guess, and the law's changed back to the way it was, then if the people of the Woodlands at that time decided that the threat of annexation was so bad it was worth the cost, then we'd incorporate.
Thank you.
Dale?
Okay, you know, you're very staunchly anti-incorporation at the present time. I guess I was trying to find something in your answers to multiple questions here. Under what circumstances would you envision that it ever would be advantageous to incorporate? Because
You know, I've thought
the
about
things,
that, and I don't know, it's hard for me to imagine the exact circumstances. Obviously, one power that a city has is the power to pass ordinances, which are, you know, enforceable by civil and criminal penalty. But the legislation that created the Woodlands Township says that the township can pass rules and regulations that,
have a lower level of enforceability.
well, rules and regulations to enhance its, that are, you know, compatible with its purpose. And part of the purpose, stated purpose, is the general welfare of the people of the Woodlands. So we can pass rules and regulations. I don't really, so there's an authority the township's never attempted to even use. And I don't see any reason to give the township more authority until it's attempted to use its existing authority, and it was insufficient to solve whatever problem the township thought it needed to solve by passing an ordinance.
So do you envision any circumstances, or you believe that remaining unincorporated up to 2100 is the right answer?
I don't know. I mean, I frankly don't know. I mean, I view incorporation as a tool to address a problem. And if we, you know, have a problem that cannot be solved through our existing enabling legislation, and the legislature won't tweak it again for us to solve the problem, and the voters of the Woodlands decide that it's worth incurring the cost of incorporation to solve this problem, then, you know, let's incorporate. But I just don't, I can't envision that
Okay.
right now.
Well, okay, I'll have to wait till next time.
Yes, you know, you spent time talking about roads, and recently the township put in 2 applications for bike path and sidewalk improvements through the through the county, in essence, because the county represents the people of the Woodlands, is the sole representation of the people of the Woodlands at the Houston Galveston Area Council. And you know, that did, those 2 projects, $7.5 million, didn't get approved. And if you had a township, incorporated a city, you would have a seat on that board.
Yeah.
But currently, we solely rely upon the good graces of the Commissioners Court, and the Commissioners Court, you know, basically feels by their inaction that they don't need to go attend these meetings to politic for, $750 million worth of funding that was recently allocated. So how as a how as a township, on the township council, since you're opposed to the corporation, you're gonna get the county commissioners to do the job and represent the interests of the Woodlands?
Well,
downtown?
first of all, Houston, Galveston, whatever it's called,
HGAC.
the prohibition against, well, their bylaws say that only an incorporated city can be a member. So it seems to me we ought to go to them and see if we can get the bylaw changed. That would be the first attempt before you go to the expensive trouble of incorporation.
And I think I've done that, and I got turned down.
And then, again, you have to balance the cost versus the benefit. And, yeah, and you'd just have to make that determination. I don't think that having a seat on that council is worth what we're gonna have to pay. I mean, if the Woodlands wants to spend $7.5 million on, bikeways, well then damn spend the money and raise the taxes to collect it. Why are we, soaking somebody else for that money? If that's such an important thing for the Woodlands.
So as a councilman, just, sitting on the township board, concerned about roads, and these are the FM roads too, which are in the township. How do you and the other councilmen get the county commissioners, to fulfill their responsibilities, to go downtown and work with the HCAC to get funding? This last go-round, we ended up with $24 million, out of the $750 million allocated. We got less money than Liberty County. Liberty County got 50-some million, and all the other counties, other than Harris, got about 100+ million.
The township only got,
No, I'm talking the county got 24 million.
for all the projects.
For all the projects of the county, and Liberty got 50.
Well, we elect those
How-
commissioners.
Right.
If they're not doing their job, then let's get our butts out of our chairs and go run some people against them and finance them and walk the blocks and kick them out of office against people who didn't do
Kind
their
of tough
jobs.
to do when the people who are building those roads get contracts from them, the incestuous relationship.
Well, I mean, it's all, we have the power to do it, but nobody will get off their butts and do it.
We've been trying.
Well, disagree.
Well, then let's
That's
go.
what we do.
Let's go.
So, I'm
Let's
not.
kick the rascals out. That's fine with me.
That's a good answer.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's the
We have
only
a voter
answer, is you've
guy.
gotta get people in there that will represent your interests, bottom line.
Okay, let me ask you about your political involvement. You say that you do contribute to a variety of politicians. Would you say that that's Democrat and Republicans more or less equal, or case-by-case basis?
I don't know, it's more case by case. I mean, I've given a lot of money, or not a lot of money for me, to Kevin Brady. I gave money to what's his name, Beto,
Okay.
when he was running for Senate.
And how about groups like Planned Parenthood, the Pride Movement, Black Lives Matter, LGBT groups,
Given any money to any of those groups. I don't give money to groups like that. I give to churches, to Montgomery County Youth Services. I prefer to support agencies that are in Montgomery County doing things for citizens.
And you said you're not affiliated with the party. Do you vote in the primaries and do you vote in the generals
Yes,
regularly?
yes.
Give it to Bob. Or John.
Giving it to Bob.
Bob needs follow-up.
Good. So one of the questions, it said, did you attend any of the special planning meetings on incorporation? If so, how many? And you said no. So I guess I'm kind of confused. If you didn't attend any of the planning meetings, how would you know exactly what benefits there would be and how much would it cost?
Well, because I read the various reports that were posted about all the costs, and they were talking about benefits, except sort of pie in the sky platitudes. I mean, is your group for incorporation? Is that the drift I'm getting here?
We're just asking questions based on what we send in.
So you can't tell me where your group stands on incorporation?
Not
For or
yet.
against, question mark?
We don't have the information, and most of us don't live in the Woodlands.
Oh, you don't even live in the Woodlands?
No,
And why are you here asking me questions about?
because this is a county function, this isn't just the Woodlands
Montgomery
function.
County Tea Party.
Oh, I see. So
The,
you're not-
almost every person in the county pays and buys stuff in the Woodlands. So your taxes are just as important to us as any other city
So
or
you're really-
municipality.
Okay, so I suspect that you're probably for incorporation.
I don't live in an incorporated area,
So why
so
don't you live in an incorporated area?
Because it's terrible.
Exactly right. That's why we like it here without being incorporated.
So why would you say that we're for an incorporation?
I don't know, the drift I get,
We're the only.
We're just
two that
asking
live in
questions.
Woodlands. We're just asking
the
questions.
drift I get is you're for incorporation. Maybe I'm
all of
wrong.
us don't.
It's a key issue, and so it's something we want to find the positions
Yeah,
of the
I
candidates.
agree.
Key issue
It is
in
a
the
key
county.
issue. Yeah, it's a key issue for all the residents. but-
Yeah. Yeah, because we already know we can't depend on our commissioners. We know that. Yeah, go look at our history. If you go to US Vote Smart and who we've selected in our voter guides that we mail out to the county, you can see that we took 2 commissioners to runoffs, but we lost those particular ones. And those are a problem. Those are a problem for the entire county and everybody that lives in it. So back to my question, so you just read the reports on what?
I've read the reports, I know what the law is. Didn't go to many of those meetings because my wife was ill. She died in April. I didn't have time to be attending incorporation meetings.
All right, do you know what the reserves are in the Woodlands right now? What they have in reserves?
Total reserve
Total
funds?
reserve.
I don't know the answer. I know they've got like 16 million in the incorporation reserve, I believe, but I don't know the total reserve.
We got the time, 46 seconds. Okay, so you said the Woodlands, if it's incorporated, would increase in taxes, if it's incorporated. So you feel like we're gonna be double paying here to the county and the Woodlands?
Double paying?
Yeah,
I don't
paying
understand your
for,
question.
well, the taxes won't go down to the county, and then we're gonna have all this escalated cost of incorporating.
So is your question, will the county cut our taxes
Taxes, right,
because we incorporated?
right.
And they won't do that.
Okay.
They have to cut the same deal for Conroe and every other incorporated city. I can't imagine they do that,
Have they not done
not to my knowledge.
that? Okay. We'll come back to that. Go ahead, Larry.
You had talked about the cost that if incorporated, the city would have to absorb, which would be the police department. What about the fire department? How does that-
No, the fire department, there wouldn't be any change. We've got a private fire department, we're already paying for it, so it would. And of course, the MUDs, not unless the city decided to assume all the bonded indebtedness of the MUDs, would the MUDs be dissolved, so they would remain in place.
Okay. You on my time, Bob?
Okay, you were asked in the questionnaire about whether you agreed with our core values or not, Montgomery County Tea Party core values. But from your answer, it doesn't sound like you read them, because all you related to, well, if they agree with lower taxes, I'm
I
for
have
it.
no idea what your core values are.
Okay. Homestead exemptions. It sounded like you were for them, but there needs to be means testing.
I don't know, I don't know, I blow hot and cold on that issue. I mean, I'm old, I'd love to get an exemption, but you know, if you exempt some people, then other people are gonna simply have to pay more taxes. And, you know, it's fine to exempt a little old widow lady that's, you know, living on Social Security. I have a hard time exempting people that live in East Shore in $1 million homes. I mean, if we could means test it, then I think that would be fine, but I just have a whole problem with that, quite frankly. The way, you know, the current exemption is set up, where it's just a blanket exemption.
Well, for everybody that's since the homestead exemptions went into effect last year, I believe, Do you know of any entity that's raised taxes because of that? I don't know of any. Everybody's lowered
But
their
it just
taxes.
stands, it
again
just
this year.
stands to reason that if you reduce taxes for some people, then taxes need to be increased.
Or you cut your budget.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. Cut your budget, hopefully you do that first. We increase your taxes.
Do you think there's any room in there for cutting the budget?
I don't know, I haven't studied it, but I mean, the first thing you got, the biggest part of your budget is always your personnel costs. And I mean, we're gonna face that. This township is gonna have to face that issue, I think, because of the deficits that are looming in 2021. You know, we're gonna have to, we're a mature community now, and we're gonna have to, you know, trim our sails so that our expenses match our income.
That's a problem.
And I don't know what the answer is, but we're gonna have to make some hard decisions in that regard.
Okay. One of our questions was which current township board member do you identify with? You said none, and that's a fair answer, but let me rephrase that and see if I can get an answer this way. Which one votes most like you would if you were on the board?
I can't answer that question. I'm not studying their voting history.
Okay. Do you attend board meetings frequently, or?
No, I've attended a couple, but I don't attend them frequently.
Okay. Okay. Let me see. I think a lot of my other questions have been taken. I'm going to pass on to Dave at this point.
We've talked briefly about budgets, and, you know, the last, 10 years or so, the township has done, leaders of the township have done a good job of basically giving back the increase in appraisals. Right, they've probably better than any political entity in the county.
Yeah.
So we're at a point now, as you pointed out, right, out of the room, that now it's gonna either cut taxes, cut spending or raise taxes. So you've lived here a while, so what services, where would you go find the money to?
That's a hard question, and I really, I don't know, to be honest with you. It seems to me we're gonna have to get a lot of input from the residents in the Woodlands. I'll probably catch Holy HE-double-L for this, but, one amenity we have that costs us a fair amount of money is the mounted horse patrol. It's very nice, it, I guess provides some level of security, but.
What was that again?
The mounted patrol, the horse patrol, but it's a pretty expensive item. And, if the businesses want to pick up the full freight, well, I say more power to them. But that's one of the items one of the ones that come immediately to my mind is something we need to look at hard. Of course, we had the cruisers, and I'm not sure what the state of those are now, but they're gone, they're off our budget. And, that's the kind of thing we're gonna have to look at. What are these services, are they really that necessary? And the personnel's gonna be a problem too. I don't wanna say we're understaffed or overstaffed, I don't know, but typically that's the biggest part of your budget is personnel costs. So, that has to be looked at as well.
I've heard that they're considering a performance center, a theater, adjacent to the,
I have real problems with that. I love the arts, but it really seems to me that that's gotta be funded through private donations. I don't mind the township coming in and, kind of closing a gap. And the township should be the choir boy, the one that's out trying to raise the money or supporting those that do, because it would be a great amenity. I think the only way you can sell that from a public funding perspective is to show that it's an economic benefit. So my general position is if you can't justify, heads and beds, economic benefit, then I think all the township should do is, close the gap, so they're $10,000 short, for example. Well, we'll go ahead and close the gap. But it really has to be privately funded, in my judgment. And of course, again, you're talking about what's the size, what's the purpose? Are we we talking about a $50–60 million facility or something much less, mainly to provide venues for local, local groups? So, I mean, that's pretty much where I stand. Although I do love them and I do love the theater and would love to have something here, but I think private money has got to really cover that gap. Unless it can be justified on an economic basis.
Okay, the big driver in this race is the annexation, and the primary issue there, even though some people say it's not, is the Woodlands Parkway extension. And the people who want annexation say that that's essential, that they incorporate so they can stop the county. And the people that don't want it say that, it's not gonna happen. And just in the last few days, I've seen about a dozen letters come out, including that 1901 Montgomery County road law, and letters from the county attorney and letters from other attorneys and all these things. Some of them say that even as a corporation, the city can come in, the county can come into the city and take care of road problems. And others say they can't. What have you read about that? Do you believe the county would still be able to come in even if it were incorporated?
Well, it's a mess. I have looked at the Harris County road law, the Montgomery County road law, and tried to understand some of that. And I know I'm going to get these dates wrong, but it was, 1901 or thereabouts, the Montgomery County road law was enacted, which basically, told the commissioners that they were responsible for roads and sort of set up the framework we have today. In that statute, the word road was not defined, it was just a road. Then in 1913, the legislature passes the Harris County road law, in which the term road, and basically the same thing, commissioners in charge of roads. But that statute defined the word road as meaning basically any street, road, within or without incorporated city limits. And then fast forward to 1972, the Piney Point case, where the county wanted to extend San Felipe, I think that's right, in part of the city of Piney Point, and the city didn't want them to do it. And the court...
Piney Point was a city, right?
Yes, yeah, it was an incorporated city. And the court said the county had the right to, and hung its hat on the Harris County road law that defined road as being basically a street in an incorporated city and not an incorporated city. Now, the Montgomery County road law, which was passed before the Harris County road law, did not define the word road. So, but I understand that the township's legal advisor, I wasn't there when he spoke on this issue, but I understand that he said that there is sufficient confusion now that he's not so entirely certain that Montgomery County, if there was a city of the Woodlands, Montgomery County still couldn't control our roads, in which, if that's true, that would be the worst of all possible solutions, because we'd have to pay for the dirt roads, but we would have no say-so in whether they were extended or widened. So, I mean, it's a mess, quite frankly.
Okay.
And I know I probably only confused it more, but it's a mess.
Everybody's pretty confused now.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Can I carry on with that one?
Do what?
Can I carry on with that?
Yeah.
So, are you aware that the county gives money to the city of Conroe to assist them on their roads?
No.
And they do that with every city within the county?
Okay, that's true. I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
The, what Bob alluded to earlier on our core values is on our website. And I think the question was, do you agree or disagree? And you said if your core values include limited government and lowest possible taxes. Yeah, that's two of them. The others are acknowledgement of our Creator, upholding the founding documents, uphold free markets, uphold limited government, uphold fiscal responsibility, which would probably cover the taxes. Limited government, of course, is in there, and then uphold ethics. There's 6 of them. Would you say you agreed with all of those, or if not, which ones would you disagree?
What do you mean by uphold the creator?
No, acknowledgement of our creator, and then the
What does
rest
that
of them
mean?
are upholding.
And what is acknowledgement of the creator?
Acknowledgement that there is a creator, God, and,
I can go with that.
okay. All right, and you're good with the rest of it?
Yeah,
too?
absolutely.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to get that through. And earlier you mentioned, what do we have time was? Okay. Kind of in the beginning with the new legislation, HB 347 prohibiting annexation, you said instead of focusing on incorporation, that we should be looking at real problems. What real problems are you referring to?
Well, the number one in my mind is flooding. That needs to be addressed. I understand that the township has really just sat back and relied upon the MUDs and the San Jacinto River Authority and other entities to work out that issue. And it seems to me the township, I mean, flooding has occurred in the Woodlands.
But in that statute, that the MUDs and the counties and SJRA are responsible for those?
Well, if you look at the enabling legislation of the Woodlands, it gives the Woodlands all the powers of an entity formed under sections 54 and 49 of the Water Code. If you go look at 54 and 49, that's basically the authority to be a flood control district. I mean, we can, float bonds to build facilities to prevent, ameliorate flooding. So I think there's some statutory authority. I mean, of course, that gives the township standing at the table to get involved in those discussions. And even without that statutory grant, the township represents the citizens of the Woodlands, and the Woodlands is flooding. So the township needs to be at that table on behalf of the residents of the Woodlands.
They can be at the table all they want, but if it's the MUDs and SJRA that have the controlling authority, there's not a whole lot they can say other than the property that they own.
Well, the township has money. It has $16 million in incorporation reserve.
But why should they put that towards flooding when
Why
it's
shouldn't they?
geared towards an incorporation? Well, at the county,
Then why are we wasting, we don't need to be screwing around with incorporation.
SJRA has $55 million in the bank. How come they're not ponying?
I don't know, I can't answer that question. All I know is that the township should be there screaming and hollering for the residents of the Woodlands.
Yeah.
And you may not get everything you want, but damn it, you ought to be at the table. You ought to be representing them instead of just, oh, that's not our problem, It's
Have you
just-
taken that to the township board?
No.
Might be a good idea, huh?
Why?
If they know, or if they
will
don't
listen to
know.
me. They're not there. They're not gonna go, it's right there in their friggin' enabling legislation. All I gotta do is read it. They got lawyers.
Have you gone to any of the county meetings on flooding,
No.
or the state meetings that have taken
No,
place?
I'm no expert on flooding. I just know
Okay.
there was flooding. It's in the Woodlands, and I think the Woodlands Township needs to
So
play a role in
you-
making sure that
You do know,
somehow that gets taken care of some way or the other.
well, you do know that the MUDs are responsible for the flooding within their areas.
What do you mean responsible for the flooding?
They-
They caused the flooding or what?
No, huh?
Liable.
They're liable, but not only liable, but they're responsible for putting together the flood mitigation for their areas. Each
Well,
one
that
of
may
them.
be, but there's no reason the Woodlands has got I think, the authority of a flood control district, and it ought to be using that authority.
Well, they don't have that authority unless they start one, unless you know something that I don't know and I'm on a MUD board. And you just can't willy-nilly make one up. I mean, it has to
In
go.
the first place, flooding is a regional issue. It's not a strictly Woodlands issue. The Woodlands needs a strong voice at the table discussing these flooding mitigation issues that affect the Woodlands.
Which table would that
We ought to
be?
be there. We may not get anywhere but damn it, we need to be there.
I agree. So which table is that? Because I've been to almost every meeting that's been out for the last couple of years on flooding within the
I
county.
applaud you for that.
Well, I'm just asking you, what meeting is it they need to be at? Because,
Every single one of them, a representative, ideally, a township board member ought to be. We ought to have a strategy, how we gonna, what needs to be done, what's it cost, and how we're gonna get there.
okay,
You know, back on the same topic about authority. So let's take an example. Let's just say something simple as a fireworks ban. So the township can pass a fireworks ban. Under existing structure, how do they enforce that?
How do they enforce it?
How do you enforce under an existing structure?
Well, same way you enforce the covenants.
Civilly.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an effective tool?
It's pretty cumbersome, but, you know, it'll work.
I've got,
Larry, yeah.
a while ago, I was asking about the fire department. You said it was private. Does that include the emergency ambulances and all that?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what they, I frankly don't know what, I thought they were a hospital, aren't they, Montgomery County?
Well, fire
Hospital
department
district.
and the emergency vehicles are under the hospital district.
That's,
well, the fire department's not.
The fire department, not.
but I thought they had, I don't know, I mean,
I can answer
I've gotten a
that.
lot of bills from the, for ambulance service, and they always come from the hospital district. so.
Right. I'm on the board for the hospital district, and we do not, we don't have a hospital. And we take care of the indigent, and we take care of the ambulance. 911 calls for the county. Every firefighter that is required to be a level 1, let's say, medic. And they fall under us as far as the direction of our medical director. But other than that, we don't have.
Is that Dr. Kovar, is he the?
No, he's been gone for at least 5 years. It's Dr. Dixon.
That's all I got.
I don't have anything.
I just have one softball question. You're running for township position 5. Why not 6? Why not 7?
Well, mainly because I knew Mr. McMullen was not running for re-election. I thought it might be easier. You're not running against an incumbent. The power of incumbency did not apply to position 5.
And there's no incumbent in 7 either.
Yeah, I just picked 5. There's nothing more complicated than that.
Okay. Dave?
I got my question already.
Well, I would probably ask him out off the camera.
Probably this way.
Off the camera.
Oh. And we got just a few more minutes. Okay, you said you voted in different elections depending on who the candidate was, right? And you also mentioned that you voted for Beto.
Yes.
Why did you vote for him? What was enticing about what he had to say in this campaign?
Well, it wasn't so much what he had to say, it was Senator Cruz. I'm extremely disappointed in Senator Cruz. I mean, a strong conservative, and he just knuckles under. And I mean, we gotta have some people with principle in the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party for that matter. And besides, the Senate is just a bloviating society, it don't do anything. So I didn't see much danger in having a Democrat represent the state of Texas.
Well, they do have the authority over the judicial appointments.
Yeah, but they've got a lock on the Senate, so they're gonna do whatever Trump tells them to do.
I don't think it's a lot.
Pretty close. I don't know how much of a lock that was, but anybody else?
No,
Okay.
You took all my questions,
I was
John.
gonna ask how you could be
What's
for
that?
limited
all my
government and
questions.
support Beto, who just said government's gonna come take your private property.
Well, that's what he's saying now. That wasn't what he was saying when he was running for
Okay.
Senate. He's an entirely different character
Oh, you're going
now.
off the rails?
Real trustworthy.
Okay.
That's why I say we need people of principle in both parties who will stick to what they believe in, or tell us they don't believe in anything. and let us make our decision.
Anybody else? That's a wrap. Okay.
Thank you
wanna
very much.
Close up, you got up to 5 minutes there.
Well, just thank you for letting me come, enjoy the discussion,
Yes, sir.
and I appreciate it very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate
Thank you, sure.
Good luck on your campaign.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.